Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In this video, I'm going to be replacing the water feeder, backflow preventer, and isolation valve for a boiler system. Now these parts are all original to the house because it's poly B and the house is about 25 years old. Like with anything else, at some point stuff is going to fail in a plumbing system, so it will have to be replaced. So what we'll do now is look at our setup. Alright, so this is our setup. We have our water feeder, our backflow preventer, and then our glow valve for the system. Now, the piping going to the boiler is poly B, which means this whole setup here is original, so it's 25 years old. So I'm going to change out these three parts. I'm going to transition into a ball valve and go into PEX and then put on a whole new assembly, because like with anything else in plumbing, it's mechanical and at some point it's going to break down and stop working properly. So what we'll do now is material and tools. Alright guys, this is our materials list. So I have a combination water feeder and backflow preventer. The model of this one specifically, this is a Watts B911T-M3. Half-inch PEX pipe compound also known as dope, Teflon tape. I have my PEX tray. So specifically for fittings, a poly B by PEX adapter, a couple MIP by PEX adapters, half-inch 90s, a ball valve, and then half-inch rings. Guys, this is the material list for this job. So what we'll do now is the tools list. Alright, this is the tools list for this job. So I have my finishing kits. Channel locks, crescent wrench. We'll see what else comes up. Crimpers, regular half-inch crimpers, close quarter half-inch crimpers, my pouch, so hand tools, measuring tape, cutters, various other things. Pipe wrenches, 12-inch pipe wrench, 10-inch pipe wrench, and then a washer hose. Guys, this is the tools list for this job, so let's get started. Alright, so this is our setup. We have our ball valve, so water's going to come in from the right. This is our backflow preventer and water feeder. You see the arrow here, so water is always going to go through the backflow preventer through the water feeder. Now, because the heating system is not potable water, that is why you need the backflow preventer. This is code. If you don't have this, you can have a cross connection and potentially kill somebody. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I have steel pipe that's going to go into this side here, and then I'm going to transition from threaded to PEX on this side, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the vent at the bottom. So with our white Teflon tape, make sure you go around at least 6 times. Alright, and then for our pipe compound, so you guys don't need much because this is only half-inch. Okay, for anything that's visible like this, I like to use a crescent wrench. A pipe wrench is better, but it scratches and it'll look ugly, and we don't want it to look ugly. Alright guys, so for the bottom, this is a vent. It's just a relief for water to go. This is not going to see pressure, but this will, so make sure that you screw this in nice and tight so you don't have an issue. But guys, this is the prefab done for this. So there's nothing more left to do for this for it to be installed. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do is shut off the boiler, so I've already shut that off. And then it really doesn't matter in this case, but I'll close this valve as well because I'm going to remove the valve anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now, we have our main shut-off valve down there. Normally I would shut it off there, but since it's a glow valve and I'm worried about it leaking, I'm going to shut it off at the street. But guys, in general, just shut off the water main there and you should be good to go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go shut off the water at the street. And then I'm going to start draining down the system. Now guys, keep in mind, because we're draining down the system, we're going to have to purge it with air. Or from air. Alright, so we have two drains. We have our boiler drain for the heat exchanger, and then we have an upper drain. Now, because our water's coming in here, there's no point in opening that, because all of this will still be full. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this boiler drain after I attach the washer hose to it. And then I'm going to send it down the drain and drain down the system. And this valve is leaking as well. Okay, the hose has stopped dripping, so I'm going to open the top valve just slightly. And that's just start bringing air into the system to drain out the rest. Alright guys, because I turned off the main water for the house, I opened the faucet on the top floor and one down here in the basement to first of all depressurize this line here going to the boiler, and then also to get as much water out as I can, because once I cut into the line, there will still be residual water inside the pipe. So here is our Poly B by PEX coupling. So I'm just going to crimp the PEX side on right now. Okay, so I've crimped on my 90 and I have my coupling. So the idea is that what I can do is just put on the 90 there, and I know right here where to cut the coupling. Now you still hear water draining out. So again, make sure that the water stops dripping before you go ahead and cut anything. Alright, so I have my container. I have my prefabbed piece of PEX with a 90 already on it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hold it over the pipe on this side, and then I'll cut the piece back. Okay, so with the 90 turned up, I'm just going to roughly eye it out to where the current valve is. Okay, so with this new valve installed and in the off position, the water for the house can be turned back on and work can be continued on the heating system without any effect to the house. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and shut off the faucets I opened, and then open the water at the street and very slowly fill up the house. Alright, so now I'm going to take the water feeder off this pipe here. Now I want to leave this here because there's no reason to remove it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pipe wrench on this end here, and I'm going to put a pipe wrench on this end here, and then disconnect these three parts. Hopefully I don't hit the valve open, because the back side of the valve is currently full of water. Okay, so this is a 1/2 inch copper fitting brush, and we're just going to clean off the threads of any pipe compound or Teflon tape. Okay, so here's our new water feeder. Now, this nut and here, the backflow preventer, if this nut is loose, put a set of channel locks here and then a crescent wrench here and tighten the two together and make sure they're tight. It's a bad reason to have a leak here because you forgot to do it. And now's the time to do it when you have a lot of space, because once it's here, it'll just be harder. Okay, so with a white Teflon tape, I'm going to wrap a minimum of 6 times. Guys, this is the exact same thing that I did for the prefab portion. Okay, so with the water feeder, I'm going to tighten it by hand as far as I can go. Okay, so when you tighten this up, make sure that it is roughly plumb up and down it straight. So now the valve has to be connected in the back. And now crimp the 2 rings. Okay, so our vent, I'm going to pipe it down into the release. I'm only going to use PEX. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe it down into the floor drain instead of having it drip straight to the ground. Alright, so with the ring crimped on, we have our 90 down here. Now, what I did was I kept the 90 to the ground, and at the bottom of the barb is where I cut it, and that gave me a 1/2 inch off the ground. Now you guys can't see this, but the ground slopes down this way towards the drain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to 90 over, follow the ground, and then pipe it into the drain. We also see that our lower boiler drain is leaking as well. Assuming that this doesn't stop, all I'm going to do is throw a cap onto this, but again, this valve needs to be replaced as well. Alright, so the last thing that I'm going to do is I've drilled a couple holes in the top of the pipe there. Now there is an air gap between the bottom of the pipe and the water level in the emergency floor drain. Now since this is technically a cross connection, there should be a 1/2 inch gap from the floor to the bottom of the pipe. Now because I can't do that here, this is what we are allowed to do locally. So I've already drilled a couple holes in the top of the pipe here, but I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. So the idea of the holes is if there's a blockage and there's some type of backflow condition, water will not be able to go up the pipe because I have a set of holes here, a set of holes here, and a set of holes here. So that will break any potential airlock. But really what should happen is the vent should be piped to the floor drain with a 1/2 inch gap between the top of the floor drain and the bottom of the pipe for it to be code. Now that's not possible in this case based on the way that they have set this up. So this is an alternative to that problem. So now with our water feeder installed, everything is done. The water needs to be turned on and all the zones need to be purged of air because now that we've cut into the system, we've introduced air into the system. So that'll be the next step. Alright, so I went ahead and I replaced the top and bottom boiler drain because the bottom was leaking. The top where it had Teflon tape on it, so there's your proof that it needed to be done as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the water. So guys, never turn power onto your boiler if the boiler is empty as it is right now. So like with everything else in plumbing, crack open the water and fill up the system slowly. And then I'm also going to leave the relief open just to start pushing the air out. So all the zones are currently off, the power's off anyway, but once the water stops flowing, then we'll go to our next step. Okay, so we can hear the trickle of water. So shut off the relief. And then once again, just wait until the water stops flowing. And then we'll start moving zone by zone. Alright guys, so we have a bypass. So this is the supply side, and then we have a bypass that goes into the return. So it is filling up everything on each floor. So this is all radiant. So what I'm gonna do is just I'm gonna open this and give the water a chance to fill everything up. So all the zones right now are being filled simultaneously. Everything here is radiant, there is no baseboards. So while I wait for the system to fill, guys, you can see how long this has been leaking for. It's green here, green here. This is actually a shape of where water was dripping. So everything on this system is shot except what looks like the boiler at this point in time. Alright, so we're just under 30 pounds. The dripping is the relief that's set at 30, so I believe the relief is no longer working properly. So what I can now do is open this all the way. Alright, so we'll open all the way. So to purge out our zones, the valve here needs to be shut off. And then I'm going to open this. So the idea here is that water is going to flow through. It's going to come down through the system. And then it's going to go up. And then it's going to go zone by zone. So I'm going to start with the top zone there, which is other bedroom. Now we also have a bypass here. So we'll close the bypass. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this zone here, and then the water feeder, I'm going to turn the handle vertically to force water through the system, and then I'm going to open this up as well. Now how long is this going to take? It depends on the size of the house. Okay, so we'll open the top boiler drain, and then we're going to manually open the zone. Okay, that has to be holding open. And then last but not least, so guys, if you exceed 30 pounds, the relief is going to blow. So you have to keep track of the tricator gauge, which is currently at just over 30. So guys, if you go too high, then the relief is going to blow. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go zone by zone and purge up the system. Alright, so we'll move on to the next zone. We'll just manually open. Okay, so with all the zones now that have been purged, so I've got water coming through the system, and then the bypass here is closed, so I'm going to open this. And now we're going to just create a loop to go around, and it'll come out, and this will be the last thing that we're going to purge. Alright guys, so I've closed the boiler drain. Now this valve can be opened. Now that that has been opened, we can turn the power back on, and I'm sure zones will be calling for heat, so the boiler should kick on right away. Okay, you can hear the dripping water. I'm pretty sure this relief here is no good anymore based on how many things I just changed. So guys, in a nutshell really quickly, I changed this up here, I changed that boiler drain down there, I changed this, I changed the air vent, and then all the internal balls. That was today. I changed the zone valve motors another day. And it looks like this thing needs to be changed too. But anyways, with this all done, we'll turn power on. Okay, well, I'm just gonna leave it here for the water feeder because now I have to wait for the system to heat up to make sure everything is running properly. But with that in mind, what we'll do now is an overview of this job. Alright guys, so that concludes this job. So this was a relatively easy, straightforward job. I didn't run into any problems with this. Everything was readily accessible, so everything went really well. Guys, keep one thing in mind. If your water feeder has failed and it's allowing too much pressure into the system, your relief is going to blow or start dripping like it was with this system here. Now, everything on the system is also original, so if you change out one thing and it's still dripping, then you have to move on to the next one. But everything went well on this job. It was straightforward. I didn't run into any issues. The time on this job. The time was about an hour. If you don't have to purge anything, this should be relatively straightforward and quick. If you have to purge zones, then it'll take you longer. Depending on the size of the house, that'll be another factor for time. But just for the actual replacement, I'm going to say it was an hour in total. The cost of this job. The water feeder backflow preventer came together, and then the valve PEX, rings, and everything else. The cost of the job was about $140. This is a relatively simple, straightforward job. I mean, you don't need anything over the top. You can run some crimpers if you need to, but this is something definitely you should be able to do on your own. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you in your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, till next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.